Okay, hi there, and welcome to my 19.2 risk assessment assignment. I've chosen to do bouldering. So bouldering is a sport that's similar to rock climbing, except you do not have any ropes attached to you, so it's completely free climbing, and is also not at the same height as bouldering. Because it's mostly done at lower heights, so if you fall, you most likely will land on a crash mat, so a lot less harm tends to be done compared to if you were actually rock climbing on mountains without any ropes. So my risk assessment here, you can see I've got 5 different risks. Participants falling off the wall and landing badly. There would be chalk available and crash mats below in order for the fall to be cushioned. And before the activity takes place, the mats and chalk availability will be checked in order to make sure that control in place is done. The grips also falling out of the wall and causing the participant to fall, so this could cause things like broken legs or spinal injuries or just sprains. In order for this to be ensured it won't happen, the grips will be tightly screwed on so they won't fall out, and there will be crash mats below. So in order to make sure this happens, that before the centre actually opens, all of the grips should be checked and tested, and the location of the crash mats will also be checked in order to assure that if something did go wrong, if participants simply just slipped off, then they would still fall on a soft surface, so injury will be limited to how bad it could get. Hitting head on a sticking out grip. All of the grips will be placed in positions where participants will be able to see them at all times, and in order for that to happen, before the centre opens, the grips will be checked that they are always visible and are placed in positions that mean no one will hit their head on them unintentionally, so they'll always be able to see them when they're climbing up, and hopefully they'll be instructed to always look around and make sure they know where they're going next anyway. The fourth one is participants falling on the people below, so people at danger is obviously the participants and the people below. The participants will be instructed, and they'll be told it's the rules not to stand under climbers. The way this will happen is, before the climbers are set out to go and free climb, they'll be told procedurally based that they are not able to stand under people who are climbing because of this risk, and if they're caught, then there's some sort of warning system. And the fifth one is falling off the top from losing balance. So if the participants get to one of the walls where you can actually stand on top of them, then they could lose balance and could fall off, and that could cause some serious injury. And in order to stop this happening, participants will be told that if they get to the top, they must go down the other side as soon as possible, and never more than 2 people at the top at one time. And prior to the activity, participants will be told no more than two people rule, and throughout the time of the session, instructors will be watching, making sure the rules are not broken, so it's always going to be monitored. So the actual equipment that you need for bouldering in order to do it in its safest form is these climbing shoes here. They have a more adapted design, so you can have more security when you're climbing. This is climbing chalk, so it allows you to have a much better grip and less friction from things like sweat on the boulders themselves. And then, as you can see here, the clothing is always relatively tight fitting. You never have anything that's loose that could get caught on one of the boulders, because that could cause some harm. The emergency procedures that would take place if anything were to happen, for example, if someone broke their leg, an ambulance would be called straight away in order to take them to the hospital. And there's also going to be first aid kits easily available nearby in order, so if they cut themselves or feeling unconscious, if they feel unconscious and their heart rate isn't working, there'll be a defibrillator on site, and you could obviously strap up any cuts and wounds that were open. The environmental considerations for bouldering are that what you have to take into account when doing it is that if you're doing it outdoors, then it may be frowned upon and even illegal to climb in certain places. It can also be looked at as ethically wrong because the rocks are obviously natural things, and therefore climbing and changing the appearance of them is frowned upon by certain groups of people, like ethical committees. So yeah, if you're climbing in a place where you're not meant to, or you've been told not to climb there because of for example, high risk, then it can be made illegal not to climb there. So overall, most of the risks that were mentioned were accounted for at the Boulder Brighton Centre when we went on the trip there. I am unsure of some of them, as we did not actually witness them checking the tightness of the boulders at the start, for example, as we were not in the first session, so we couldn't actually see them do it, but I'm sure they did have a procedure in place for that at the start of the day. As far as environmental conditions go, indoor centres such as Boulder Brighton are being set up in order to stop people doing it on real-life rocks and causing them damage. So places like Boulder Brighton, they're all indoors, just in a warehouse environment. They're actually better because then you don't get things occurring like rust. And yeah, so better to do it indoors. Thank you for watching.